Hi folks, it's been a few days since I posted. Life is busy and just haven't been able to get out and ride and record all at the same time, or at least not record YouTube. But they did release a software update. Hammerhead released a software update on Thursday, April 19th. So this is version 1.5.1.3, and eagle-eyed among you will note that the 1.5 is a I guess a minor version jump from where they were at 1.4 with the various releases there. So they are calling this the Lynx update. Unfortunately, that doesn't really mean a lot as far as data fields and those kind of things are concerned, because they've really been chipping away at Lynx for a while. So it's more of just a numbering thing than it is actually some sort of major feature set update. But what they did do is they improved or they changed pause, basically, or auto pause, and I do have that turned on. So now both the Garmin and you'll notice that the Garmin is back on, and that's not necessarily a knock on the Karoo right now. There were a few reports both on KarooUsers.org and Facebook that this update was behaving a little weirdly for some people. There were some really weird speed spikes, some really weird cadence spikes. So anyways, I thought it might be worth a comparison. I actually don't really expect any problems, so I'm gonna try to take the positive approach here, and I don't really expect any problems. The other reason the Garmin is on the bike, at least temporarily, is that I just needed to calibrate the power meter, which I haven't actually done in a few rides. You're really supposed to do that quite a bit more often, and I just haven't gotten to it, and the numbers have, seemed relatively accurate, so I haven't really worried about it. So the auto pause changes a little bit. If I get to that point, and maybe I'll stop mid-ride and I will show what that looks like, but it's less intrusive. You can swipe it down to the bottom and still swipe through the pages. And there's just, it's just supposed to work better. So I've turned that on for this set. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ride with, just do my usual route from home, which I have as a route. So I'm going to do that because supposedly the turn-by-turn directions are supposed to appear on all data pages and not just the map. So we'll find out. Most of the things listed are, they've listed things like various back-end improvements to sensor data, better handling of grade, improvements to roundabouts and other turn instructions, left-hand navigation for those of you living in England or places where you drive on the left, improved software protocol for recovery of ride data after unexpected crashes and freezes. So these are those situations where people had their Karoo do something funny in the middle of a ride and lost the whole ride. Apparently, maybe it's saving more often, or it's not really sure what that means. I'm hoping actually not to find out. There's some sort of prompt for high battery drain when you use adaptive brightness, which I don't use. I set my brightness fairly low to conserve battery. Cadence values no longer include zeros, so we'll see how that works out. There's some information on lap screen and back-end improvements. Supposedly they fixed some Strava upload failures, which I haven't been having. TSS updates to correct pause time. I'm reading through on my cell phone as I record this, so bear with me. And then there are still some issues remaining, and I'm not going to list those off. You can look those up either on KarooUsers.org, or you can look them up on Hammerhead's site directly. But I'm going to put the GoPro away. We're going to get going. I'll try to pause mid-ride maybe and give some indication of how things seem to be going. And I guess that's about it. This is actually, I'm not sure what ride number this is. I've actually ridden 2 or 3 times since I last attempted to do a YouTube recording. So we may look at the ride data for that, although in all honesty, it's a lot less interesting when there's nothing to compare it to, because you really don't have... You just kind of have to take the Karoo's word for it, which is fine, and that may be good. And like I said, the only reason the Garmin is really on is because of, 1, the software update, and 2, I just needed to calibrate the power meter. So while it was on the bike or while it was down in my pocket, I thought I might as well put it on and we'll compare. So hopefully some of that information was helpful about this update. The updates are supposed to come bi-weekly now, basically every Thursday. We'll see if they stick to that or not, but we're gonna go ride now because the sun's out and it's not blowing a gale for a change around here, so we'll have a nice hour here. Thanks, bye. Hi folks, we're mid-ride here. The wind is blowing a little bit here down by the water. You may actually hear the ocean. But I thought I'd stop quickly mid-ride and just show some of the stuff going on here. And for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, this is all good news. So this shows that the data, or I'm sorry, that the turn-by-turn directions are actually appearing on data screens. I haven't scrolled. I'm going to scroll here and see if it stays. It does stay. So this is really good news, and it works very well. This is staying here because it's waiting for me to make this U-turn. But what happens is about 0.2 of a mile from the turn, this will pop up. When you make the turn, it'll stay for a little while and then it will go away. You can also tap it to make it go away. I don't know if that's going to come back or not. The other thing you'll see here is the pause. I did not push the button. This is the auto pause function, so it doesn't pop up that thing and take up the whole screen. All it does is put that little pause kind of watermark over the top, and you can still scroll through the data screens here. This is the data screen that I was trying to show a few days ago. It's a little bit squished because I probably have too many fields on here, but the top is heart rate. This is the heart rate zones. So for this ride, I've mostly been in zone 3. This is the power. Obviously I'm stopped, so that's going to show 1. And then these are the power zones. So fairly consistent. I'm just kind of out for a ride today. I'm not trying to do anything fancy or difficult. This is the map, which is correct, and the map does show the tag. I'm going to tap this and see if this goes away here too. It does not, so that's normal. This is back at the data screen. It shows 6.8 miles. The Garmin shows 7.05, which is odd. Unfortunately, the times are off by a little bit because I actually started the Garmin late. So I kind of thought I had pushed the button and I had not, so the Garmin is a little bit late. Or a little bit slow, but you could see the ride time is paused. You could see the pause icon. So I didn't have any dropouts. Maps working. So as far as I'm concerned, this is pretty good news. I'll pan up here so you can see the ocean, but you've been here before, so probably not all that interesting, although the sun just popped out and there's something going on in the parking lot here. I don't know why all these campers are here, unless these campers can actually go out on the beach. But they're not actually in the right spot to go out on the beach. There's another access road that they would use to go to the beach, so I'm not sure. Maybe if they're waiting for the beach to open, it could be a tide thing. There's a couple, you may be able to see them kind of right over that blue barrel there. There's one out on the beach. So maybe that the tide is a little bit too high and they're waiting for the tide to go down before they can get out. But pretty nice day here. Actually, the wind has died down a bit, and so good day to ride. I'm almost wishing I had a little bit longer route planned. Well, the other thing to note is, I'm going to pan back down here. The other thing to note is that I did go off route briefly in my neighborhood, and it very quickly picked that up. I did get the dreaded waiting for instructions just as I was starting out, but that went away very quickly, so I don't know if it was just kind of quickly loading in the turn by turn and then that went away. But all in all, really good news. The only thing that I'm noticing that's a little bit different is that the mileage is off by a bit, but that's sort of always been the case. So I'll probably do a quick summary when I get back to the house, and then maybe we'll do a data review. Thanks. Hi folks, last little update here. Back home. Not sure if I've shown this before, but you do get this at the end of the ride, and it kind of stays there. Which is fine, I guess. The only thing I'll note is that I did do a ride a couple of weeks ago, and I think I noted it then, that if you miss this and you go past, it won't route you back. So, you know, very minor complaint. I'm sure people are rolling their eyes because overall this was good news. The only other thing I will comment on, and I guess probably going to get some more eye rolls for this, is that the Garmin is much more aggressive about pausing. So I could hear the Garmin beep. I looked down at the Karoo and it was still, and it took a couple of seconds for this pause icon to appear. And it's the same thing when you're starting up. The Garmin kind of kicks in a little bit faster, and the Karoo seems to wait just a second or two longer. I'm not sure if it will show in the time. The lap time on the Garmin is showing at 1 minute, and this is 1 minute 17. Mileage is off by a half a mile. The Karoo is low, I guess. It's lower. I don't display average speed, but the normalized power is identical, and that's really all I can see on these Garmin pages. But it is nice that you can kind of scroll through these while the ride is still paused. That's a very good implementation of the pause compared to the old one. I forgot to set the elevation. That was the one thing on the checklist that I didn't do, and I still don't understand why these aren't appearing. I don't know if that's because I didn't properly set this, or if they're just not actually functional. And the other mistake I made was that I didn't have the, I turned off the slope page because I thought it was useful, but they did make an update to that. So I should have tried it, because I did get on a couple of hills intentionally to check it, and then when I scrolled through the pages I realized it wasn't there. So I'm probably riding again tomorrow, and maybe even again on Sunday. So I'll add that page back in and try to report back on how that looks. This is the final summary of the heart rate zones and power zones, which is probably pretty normal. Mostly easy, zone 1, and slowly going downhill. These charts again are very cool. I do like I'm actually a little bit confused. I'm not sure why the heart rate zone is only 5. I thought that was set up as 7 somewhere. I can't remember which method I used. I think they used the Coggin method. The power zones are 7 zones, and I really, pretty easy ride. Map is correct. That doesn't go away. And that's it. I guess we're going to save this, and we'll go inside and compare the two rides. So here are the rides. I'm sorry, the last ride. And then we'll backtrack and go through the previous two, although it's obviously going to be less interesting because there's nothing to compare it to. But if you've looked ahead even quickly, you can see how, other than mileage, and I'm still confused about this, and I don't know which one is correct because I keep forgetting to map out the ride and see what either a mapping tool or I guess I'm not sure which one of these was correct on Strava or was displayed on Strava, but obviously there are still differences here, and it's confusing. I'm not sure if one device is using GPS and one is using the speed sensor. It could still be a wheel circumference calibration issue. But other than that, and other than me not starting the Garmin and the Karoo at exactly the same time, again, Karoo in purple, Garmin in blue, everything else is nearly identical. The elevation gain, I forgot to reset I forgot to calibrate the Karoo, so that's my fault. And they haven't issued any information, I don't think, on auto calibration. So, but things like relative intensity. I mean, this is 3 decimal places. They're so close. Power, it shows off by 1 here, 179 versus 180, except this is 0. So I'm guessing this is just a rounding issue. Speed is off by half a mile, and well, it's 0.4 here and it's 0.5 there. So again, there's some sort of rounding issue. But average power, heart rate, all these things, cadence, all these things are good. The zones actually look much better than they have previously, and I'm going to chalk that up probably to the pause time. Also the heart rate zones, I think the big difference is probably in just when I started the devices, and that's maybe why they're off by just a little bit. Gets even more interesting here, and this is almost where it was good to have started the Garmin a little bit. Well, this actually looks like I started the Garmin early instead of late, but you can see kind of the offset here, and it actually makes it a little easier to see where, if there's a spike, whether they both have the spike, and it seems like actually they both do. So there are cases where when I've done a better job of
syncing up the rides where it's hard to tell if that color that's kind of dropping down is just one device or both, because it's one color is just overlaying the top of the other. But this all looks good. I've looked through this, but it was yesterday, and now I'm recording a day late. So, I mean, these lines are almost impossible to tell the difference. The map doesn't really help us. Stress I can't understand. These speed charts, they've always been weird, and I don't have any reason to believe that one color is more or less accurate than another. Cadence actually looks much better. And these are the weird charts that I also don't understand. Anyways, so let's clear these, turn comparison off. So this is the ride from this must have been Wednesday night. The April 20th was Friday. This was what they call the ice cream ride around here. So this was just it's a shop ride, but I actually volunteered to help out with the ice cream ride, which a little too cold for ice cream, but that's what he calls it. It's just a kind of a recovery ride, and you can see that from the time in the various zones here. As near as I can tell, all this was good. This was prior to the software update, but all this stuff is likely accurate. Not a very hard ride, you can see by the wattage there. Not a very fast ride, you can see by the speed there. But it's, it's a fun time, and I actually like helping out with that group. But obviously these charts look different, and I've shown this a couple times before now. They look different because there's nothing to compare to, so you get kind of these cool colors and that sort of stuff. But I'm not entirely sure how to read these because I'm more familiar with doing the comparisons than just the raw data. While these are cool, they're not really telling us whether the Karoo is accurate or inaccurate. They're just kind of showing the Karoo's data, in graphical format. So that was the ride from Wednesday. This is the ride from, let's see, the 14th must have been Saturday. So this was a longer ride. This was in preparation for an event that I'm doing next week. So we're trying to put in, or I'm trying to put in at least the mileage. I don't have any real serious goals for this, but just trying to get the mileage in so I know I can do the mileage on that day and will feel better. I expect there actually to be a lot of group riding and drafting, so it's probably actually going to end up being faster and maybe even easier if I can kind of hide a little bit out of the wind. But we actually did a pretty good clip here. 17.2 was the average. And that was, again, this was the Saturday before, so this was prior to the update. This was with the old software version. All of these things look pretty good. I don't remember what this stop was for. And then there's another one here, and then not sure what this is because it doesn't show a stop. Maybe I may have actually paused the device a couple of times. This I know was when we initially did a meetup and we had to wait for a few people, so I'm familiar with that one. These I think that where it drops completely almost everywhere, including here. I'm guessing I actually hit the pause there and I didn't hit the pause here, so it's possible it was a stoplight or something that we expected to go through. But this data all looks good. I don't really know how to read this chart. I think probably the graph is maybe my expected values, and the color is probably what I did. So it looks like, yeah, I'm not really sure how to read this, so I'm not going to make any speculations or tell you something that I don't know is mostly correct. But these all look good. Speed, all these charts look good, I guess. Anyway, that's probably enough of me blabbering on about charts and things that I don't understand. So, if you've gotten this far, thank you for watching.